here.
Councilman Leonard.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Duper.
Present.
Mayor Rigsby.
Here.
Councilman Popescu is absent. There is a quorum.
Okay, the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tempore Duper. Please stand. Are there any items to be added or deleted to the agenda?
No, sir.
Would the public like to speak on any items not on the agenda? I have one request for an agendized item. Okay. No takers. We go to our scheduled items. Item number 1 is a public hearing, Council Bill O-2016-03, first reading, setting second reading for June 14, amending the municipal code.
Mr. Mayor, council members, this is an ordinance relating to a hotel incentive program. We looked at something similar to this a few weeks ago. Took it under advisement in the discussion that occurred. So what we're looking at is an incentive program for 3-star AAA hotels, 3 diamond hotels rated by AAA in the city. This is for new hotel rooms constructed in the next 5 years with a cap of 500 rooms to be included in this. Anything beyond 500 rooms will not receive the incentive. The incentive is a 30% refund on the transit occupancy tax, which is currently 10% of the room rate. The city will keep 70%, and it will run for a 10-year period. We came up with this calculation that at the typical room rate and estimating about a 60% occupancy, the newest hotel here is slightly higher than that, but we figure as we get more rooms it'll drop. That would essentially end up offsetting the development impact fees over that 10-year period without front-loading it too much and without providing any really excessive assistance. So what we're trying to do is essentially reduce or amortize out the development cost for anybody that builds that. And once again, it's a 30% reduction in the 10% of the room rate for 10 years, and we are capped at 500 rooms. Our analysis shows that the city can probably support 700 at the high end, and what we're looking at is not to support everybody. What we're trying to do is develop a kernel of hospitality and hotel uses to augment what the other activities we have in the city.
Is this equivalent to rebates being offered by our surrounding communities?
I don't know that any of our surrounding communities have any rebates. I do know that Anaheim currently has rebates, and it's a 40% rebate for the high-end luxury hotels as they're trying to increase the quality of the hotels around Disneyland in a similar program. Garden Grove has a similar program as they're trying to poach hotels from Anaheim. But it's in this area, we would, as far as I know, we're the only ones doing that, which is, what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that market and get those guys to look at us and not to go into San Bernardino or Redlands and leave that tax there.
Do we have any kind of minimum quality standard?
It is a, let me make sure I get this right. It is a AAA rated 3-diamond hotel. AAA has specific ratings and standards as far as room sizes, amenities, meeting spaces, cleanliness and other activities that bring it into that 3-diamond status. What we're not looking for is low-end hotels. We're looking for something that it truly does fit the community.
Okay.
And triple 3 stars out of 5, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Holiday Inn Express falls firmly in that range. We're looking at that caliber of hotel. We're not, certainly we'd be glad to get a Hyatt or a DoubleTree, but what we really are is looking for a product that will continue to support the growth of the needs of our institution and our community as we bring in more and more people in.
And it's fair to say that we actually were offering kind of a greater incentive, and because of the interest, that we pulled back a little bit and kind of rethought it just to make sure that we're actually getting the bang for our buck, correct? So it's been evaluated a couple of times since we...
Yeah, we had a little higher percentage for a little longer time, and took it to the 700 room max, and we really looked at the logic of that and said what we want to do is create an incubator, not finance the whole deal.
Right. So we're actually toning it down a little bit.
But my whole idea is we would like to diversify our revenue into the city.
Yeah.
Right now, our main revenue is really sales tax from 3 businesses, the auto dealership, the gasoline tax, and the hospital. And if we can get the TOT to come in and be a 4th major revenue source into town, would be super. So if something happened to the Manfield Oil, that we're not going to be impacted that much. Yeah. Second is, as you can see in the city of Redlands, they have a lot of shopping center coming in. I'm afraid that the hotel will go over to that city more than come over here because they have something attractive to go to. Well, we would like them to come here to go to use the meeting at the hospital or the VA hospital that's scheduled to be open very soon. So that's kind of our idea behind this incentive.
What about, how does this impact it, or does it impact the extended stay hotel that we just approved a few weeks ago?
This will apply to the extended stay, but not to the Holiday Inn Express, because it is not under construction yet.
Okay.
So those 98 rooms, 95 rooms will fall in that.
And I know we have quite an array of land that theoretically should be available. Are the owners interested in this kind of an investment?
Actually, we have our resident expert in the field out here. Oh. But yes, there are parcels. Actually, the city owns one next to the 2 existing hotels that is, would create quite a nice cluster of hotels and would bring on ancillary services. There's also, some vacant freeway frontage and some land on Redlands Boulevard next to the new VA facility. So there are very suitable sites, very well located for that.
And are we going to try to influence? I know the AAA rating, but are we going to try to influence whether there are any suite options available? I'm thinking about patients that come and have to stay here and there's no room in Ronald McDonald House and that kind of thing.
I think the market will drive part of that, hence why we're getting the extended stay. We certainly will work with the operators to give an array of products in their set. The other one that we really are going to push for is that each of them have some form of public meeting space. Is another thing that we're woefully lacking. There's the city's community room, and other than that, you're tied to meeting spaces on campus. For years, we've been taking the Chamber of Commerce to another city for a dinner. Yeah. It'd be nice to do it in town.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I think it's a great idea. I'm all for it. I know we're not going to vote on it tonight, but are we? This is first reading.
Then we have to have a public hearing. So any more questions? Okay, then I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody like to speak on this topic? Sounds like our usual rousing debate. I was quoted in the newspaper on Monday as saying, "There's 0 members of the public. Do any of you have anything you want to say?" So at least we have somebody that came tonight. Thank you for that. If there's no comment, then I'll close the public hearing. And what's the pleasure of the council?
What's the action to take tonight?
No, that's next time.
This is introduction, so vote to introduce and set the second reading for June 14th.
So moved.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's unanimous. It's approved for the first reading and the setting the second reading for June 14. We'll see you all then. The consent calendar is short. What do you think? Is it worthy of a motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. Then we have old business, and this is a joint meeting of the City Council and the newly opened Housing Authority meeting regarding fiscal year 2016 to 17 budget. City Manager. Finance.
Mayor, Councilman, this is the 2016-17 proposed budget. On April 12th, there was a joint workshop between City Council and the Budget
Lean
Committee.
into your mic. We need to get her
Need
a
a longer
longer
one.
mic. She got the short straw on this one.
So on April 12th, there was a joint meeting between the Budget Committee and City Council to discuss in detail the proposed budget. So right now I have a PowerPoint presentation just to summarize the totals in the budget and just kind of go over any changes that were made since that meeting. So basically this is the annual presentation that we go through, and we present the general fund as a standalone budget, and then we present the city as a whole, including all the enterprise funds, the special revenue funds, which include grants, special like gas tax funds, and then we will present the housing authority. Here we're listing the changes that have happened to the budget since the April 12th workshop. We did make some changes to the beginning fund balance in a couple of funds, due to some items that came in. We made a change to the water acquisition fund beginning fund balance due to the repayment from the successor agency on the loans that were authorized by the Department of Finance. So we did get one semi-annual payment. So the water acquisition did see a $364,000 increase to its beginning fund balance. Special projects also saw a $648,000 increase from those loan repayments. And then we did receive development impact fees from the VA, so we will be paying some money back that was loaned to the Park Development Fund for advances to purchase the South Hills open space to the tune of $209,000, which will be going back to special projects. In the capital projects successor agency, this is a new fund that we added due to the transfer of bond proceeds that we had in the RDA. The transfer was approved by DOF, so we now have this new fund in the city-wide accounting system. So we will be spending that on approved projects that were part of the approved redevelopment plan. Yes, it has
Yes.
been approved.
This is which is big for us. This is the big settlement that we have with the Department of Finance, that they have 15 years to pay us off. And so this is the first payment. And out of this $4.6 million, we plan to spend that for...
Excuse me, these are the bond proceeds that were transferred, not the loans.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. How about the RDA, the bond proceed?
Yes. So we had when DOF basically ordered us to dissolve the redevelopment agency, any bond proceeds we had, we could not spend according to DOF until we went through all the steps to finalize the successor agency. So we've gone through all the steps. We've done all the reportings, we've submitted our long-range property management plan. So we've got what's called the finding of completion. So once that happens, we were authorized to then be able to spend bond proceeds and then sell property. One of the actions that was proposed was to move the bond proceeds to the city. That way we would then not have to be going back to the successor agency and the oversight board for approval of the projects. As long as we spend the money on the approved projects that were originally intended for those bond proceeds. So we transferred it to the city, which gives us a little bit more leeway, because having to go back every 6 months to DOF to approve something or the oversight approval, it gets pretty tedious. So our successor agency bond council recommended we do this, which is nice. So JARB can spend it. On the loans, it was $21 million. Mm-hmm. Yes. So we will be getting that over 14 years probably. And then on the current repayments, we do get any back payments in addition to the current payment. So part of the next year's budget, we will see about, if tax increment holds, we will see about $2 million in loan repayment, which will come back to special projects and the capital and the water acquisition fund.
Is there a defined schedule for those payments?
For the loan repayments,
Yeah.
yes. We had originally had it was a semi-annual payment of about $800 and something thousand, because they owe us back payments to the tune of $5.6 million on top of the semi-annual payments. Any additional, I guess, excess tax increment that comes into the successor agency can be used to then pay back on those loans. We don't know that amount. It's not a fixed amount. It all depends on what's left after the taxing agencies get their obligated amounts as far as.
And I assume we're collecting that there's interest involved in this.
We are calculating interest on the loans.
Okay.
Yes.
Now keep in mind that the money that come back will go to special project, not general fund. Special project is more like a one-time expenditures, the project they would like to do, not general fund to spend.
Yeah.
Yes, oh, definitely.
I was just curious if we received the first payment, because we look and say that we
Next year, right?
Next year, we should get 2 semi-annual payments. So our current tax consultant for the successor agency, Diane Hadlin, has calculated. So we're thinking about $2 million in additional tax increment that we can use to pay down the loan.
Because you know there's issues with the IDA where DOF had settled and promised them things, and now it's reneging on their promises over there. So it's hard to. You'll believe it when you see it.
Yes, that's why it's always a special project, not.
Okay. So, and then we'll see a change to the beginning fund balance in the water fund to the tune of $186,000. This is a reallocation of our liability insurance. The way we allocate it, it's based upon incidents, and due to the flooding back in 2010, most of the incident came from that flooding incident, which should be general fund, not water fund. So we reallocated. The way the insurance In the rolling retro work, it's hard to know what the amount is and where it gets allocated. So when we got the final allocations, we had to go back and adjust the water fund, and you'll see a decrease in general fund beginning balance, which is on this next slide.
Not surprised.
So the decrease to beginning fund balance for general fund is for that liability insurance reallocation. And then since the April 12th workshop, we've had some approvals of appropriations to the current budget. So those will be reductions to the general fund initial beginning fund balance for the temporary planner and then the additional deputy coverage till the end of the year. In the park fund, we'll see a reduction for the repayment of the advance for the $210,000. And then in storm drain, we approved an additional appropriation for design of the Benton Stream storm drain.
And that's to pay the permit to Union Pacific Railroad to go to jack and bore the pipe underneath the railroad track.
The only change to the proposed budget will be the compensation adjustment that was approved at the last meeting. Okay. And this is just a summary comparing it to the current budget, the beginning balances, and the proposed budget beginning balances. As you can see there, we will start off the next fiscal year with a reduction in beginning fund balance. This year we elected to address some much needed repairs and maintenance as one-time items. So we did some improvements to City Hall. We purchased a fire engine. And so those items play into the reduction in our beginning fund balance for next year. Here we look at our unassigned beginning fund balance. We're doing a comparison of our revenues, our expenditures, and then what we will end the year. Here we highlight the 7 top revenue sources. As the city manager mentioned, sales tax is our #1 revenue source. We will have an increase of 8% to that for the coming year. But part of the sales tax also has an economic incentive attached to it, so there will be some offsetting expenditures for that item. We are seeing the motor vehicle in lieu license fee is now attached to property tax increases, so there is an increase in assessed valuation, so we're projecting a 4% growth to that component. Overhead, slight increase. Property taxes, we're seeing a 3% increase. Refuse services, a 1% increase. Franchise tax, a 4% increase. And then we're seeing our building permit activity will increase significantly due to
largely the medical center, or are there other projects?
Due to the projects that are anticipated.
Yes, there's a hospital, there's a parking structure, there's a hotel that we just approved, Marriott Hotel. We have a 35-lot subdivision that was approved, and we have, so that is a start. And we have more coming in. We have a 200-lot subdivision that can be coming in. Ronald McDonald, even though it's under construction, we should get the permit when they're ready to move in. So there's a lot of projects coming into town.
That's good.
As far as expenditures, we are seeing an increase to our admin, and that's our general government is increasing, mainly due to the liability insurance increases we are encountering. Our police services, the additional deputies are causing the increase. Community development, along with the increase to the revenue, we also have an offsetting expenditure for our consultant to do the plan check and inspection. So we're seeing an increase. The fire department, we are seeing a decrease. This year they purchased the fire engine, and then we had some additional overtime for personnel services, but next year they anticipate filling vacant positions and not encountering the overtime that they have this year. And Public Works also was for the one-time projects that we did for repairs and maintenance to general facilities, streets, that we were approved by City Council.
Diana, can you give me a definition of administration and general government?
Administration includes City Council, the City Manager's Office, Finance, our Senior Center, I believe, falls into that category. And then general government is just a one department fund that we do for, we basically put in our insurance cost in, things that cover the whole city, as so insurance, attorney fees, so just everything that spreads across all the departments goes into the general government category.
And it's also in your budget booklet under administration and admin. So it's spelled out. That's a 5-year CIP, but it's in the booklet you received at that last meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
So here you'll see the change to our overall general fund budget. As we have anticipated, we will have a deficit spending to the tune of $500,000. This was to cover additional public safety and just continue with the ongoing operations.
The big portion is insurance and worker compensation.
And when you say insurance, multiple types of insurance.
Yes, sir.
Flood insurance, and
Yes, sir.
liability insurance, and property insurance.
Yes. Yes. And what happened is because we settled with the lawsuit for the flood,
Yeah,
and now we have to start paying for it.
yeah. It's a scam. You pay for it twice.
This is our city as a whole, and as you can see, we will end the fiscal year with a higher fund balance for the overall city. Here you'll see, in the current year, you'll see the transfer from the successor agency into the city. Revenues are significantly higher than we're projecting for next year. We did receive the development impact fees this year to the tune of $7.1 million for the VA development. So those came in this year. So we have higher balances in our capital project funds for those. The bulk of them came to about $5 million for the regional transportation, and $1.5 million came into our local transportation fund. So overall, we're seeing, as we discussed the general fund, we're seeing a change in our revenues of 4% increase. Our sewer fund, due to rate increases, we're anticipating a 6% increase. The Loma Linda Connected Community Programs, we aren't budgeting any revenues in that fund. We're hoping to sign an agreement with Ally Taliesin to take over the operations of that fund. Of that program, sorry. Water fund, we are seeing a reduction in revenue due to the consumption levels that were ordered, as far as a 30% water reduction in conservation. So we are anticipating a decrease in those revenues. Capital funds, we are anticipating additional expenditures, again, mainly for transportation costs and improvements to circulation within the city. And then other funds, we are seeing the expenditures of $2.2 million. And some of these are special revenues that we get, like gas tax, Measure I, and these are program revenues specified for certain, the CDBG projects. So these are those special revenues that go into these other fund categories.
Okay.
And as far as expenditures overall, we're seeing a slight increase in expenditures as a city as a whole. Very slight increase in the general fund. Basically, it was 14,100 in the general fund. Sewer fund, we are seeing a 5% increase. Part of the sewer fund is a pass-through to the city of San Bernardino for the treatment of sewer. The LLCCP, we still have depreciation expense, and we do accrue interest expense on the loans in the Loma Linda Connected Community Program. So you will see the expenditure there. Water fund, we are projecting a decrease due to some reduction in capital projects in the water fund, just to satisfy the requirement of bond coverage.
I have a question on that. I understand if we have limitations put upon us by the state that we anticipate less revenue. I understand that. But I heard on the news the other day on my way to work that I think the governor or somebody reduced the limit from 30% to 20%.
No, right now we from 34 down to 30%. But then the state, hopefully next year, they're thinking about have the city mandate our own reduction. But we still have, the goal is 20% by 2020, still there. The mandate's still there. 20% by 2020.
Maybe my coffee hadn't kicked in yet.
Yes, yeah.
No, it was true. It's just different for each city, correct? Correct. So it's just our city, we didn't fare so well.
Okay. So what is, the cities that did the best, how low is their percentage?
As low as I think in Northern California probably does the best by 10% reduction.
Okay.
Even though we're on our own aquifer.
I know, but we're generous and we share it.
But our aquifer requires replenishment from the California Water Project. So, yeah, it all washes down that wadi called the Santa Ana River.
Drill some holes.
That's the problem. Too many holes been drilled.
What you need is a bucket attached to your roof gutters.
Capital projects, we are seeing an increase due to some expenditures for street improvements that JARB will be bringing forth.
I do have to say, we've got the best surfaced streets in the Inland Empire, I'm sure.
We do. And then we have other funds, which basically is the status quo, and that, like I said before, those are special revenues, and those will be spent according to the restrictions of those special revenues. So as a city as a whole, we are actually adding $801,000 to our budget fund balance, which I think, considering we are, still in, reserves, and, as a whole, we're bringing in money for capital improvements and our development impact fees. We're addressing certain needs within the city, and we are still, moving forward and adding to our reserves. Okay, Loma Linda Housing Authority, we took it over after the redevelopment went away, and we authorized the Housing Authority. It's pretty much a status quo. We have issued, we have become, in a sense, the mortgage company for some low-income housing. So we collect those revenues, and we operate the Housing Authority on a minimal budget. We are incurring some costs to maintain and sometimes reacquire property that people would like to move on and have had success with that property, and they just want us to buy them out and take over. So we buy those houses back just to maintain the covenants, and then we resell them. We are currently operating like a bank or a mortgage company to some of those homes. And as always, we're very conservative in our budget numbers. We try to be very diligent with what the proposed expenditures will be, and we try to maintain our reserves. So we still have our $3.3 million in unassigned reserves. We have still the $1.2 million in our assigned reserves, which is for equipment replacement. We are maintaining that. And then we have our emergency reserve, which is considered a committed reserve of $5.5 million to our general fund balance. So this is our proposed budget for the 2016-17 fiscal year. And I'd just like to thank all the staff involved, City Council, the Budget Committee for all their diligent work in preparing this budget and the recommendations, and just vigilant over the city. At this time, we wanted to invite the Budget Committee to present their recommendations.
And while Jay's coming up, I want to compliment you on as always, a complete report that's understandable. I appreciate that.
Well, after that nice presentation, I'm going to have to plead, could I be the court jester? The court jester in front of the king. Be able to say a little bit of truth and not get whacked. Okay? So generally, during our presentation, it's just generally some of the stuff that we want to have done to see in the budget. And it's usually things outside of what is going on as normal functions that are going in. However, this year we see a slip. And the slip is, this is the first time that we can remember, a deficit. And despite stuff that was reported in the paper, year after year, we do not come in with a deficit to be presented to you. This is one of the, as far as we can remember, the last 20 years, I don't remember a deficit ever being brought forward to be approved by the City Council. So this is kind of an unusual situation to be in for the City of Loma Linda. So with that in mind, I think some of the observations that we had in our report is kind of setting the framework on part of our recommendations. And part of the deal that we were seeing is that sooner or later, after the Great Recession, we, as a city, had decided to kind of defray costs, expenditures in a lot of different areas. Some of them were for wages, some of them were for equipment, some of them for streets, some of them for... We couldn't do everything that we wanted to do. All those things are beginning to get built up over time. This deficit is, we believe, is that being shown is that this big buildup is going to come and haunt us sooner or later. We reduced police services, and now we had to replace them. That's part of our deficit. There's a bunch of other costs out there that will have to be replaced. Our income hasn't risen to the value of being able to support all the past stuff plus the current stuff. Therefore, we're in a deficit. All this plays into the game of we're trying to become, in effect, a balanced budget and a sustainable budget in financial positions are the hallmark of a well-run city. If we can't provide that, then we are no longer a well-run city. The deficit is a sign of that. Also, another observation that we had is during the Great Recession, the City Council had gone way out of its way to immediately cut a lot of expenditures, to cut it down to the revenues. Unlike a lot of cities in California at that time, we were kind of unusual in that we quickly dropped down to our level of support, which allowed us to maintain it a lot easier than those that kept on going in a deficit year after year. Along with that, the city council, along with the employees and the city itself, had kind of a pact that was created. It was kind of a culture that they were working together as a unit to try and solve all the issues with that. However, in recent legislation from the city council, they decided to increase their wages by 50%. Even though these are fixed costs, and that what they did with that is that you knowingly, in a deficit, did discretionary expenses voluntarily. Not only that, it was to yourself. We thought that didn't fit with the culture that you created when you guys took all the expenses and dropped them down. We thought that was not part of the pact. We thought, as again, let me be the court gesture, it was an act that doesn't seem to be as with the attitude that you had before. We noticed that it was not only you passing it, but when asked about it, you tried to justify it. And I'm going to paraphrase here. The legislation was written with the maximum, and we have to pass it or forfeit it, because the opportunity won't come around for 2 years, the next election. We can pass it as written with the maximum amount allowed. We don't have to take it. I want it all. All past budgets have been in deficit, and Loma Linda still is able to increase its reserves. Belief that the elected civil servants should get what the law allows. What we saw here was a real change in attitude, and the attitude was entitlement. And we were kind of shocked to see that it went to the level to do it, not only during a deficit, but to yourselves. Other concerns that we wanted to kind of observe is that salary compensation for the City of Loma Linda Council. I have in my report 81 to 385% of the rest of the councils in the area from your survey. Please excuse me, my math was wrong on that. It's far worse. It's 785% of the maximum differences. That was with a large city. What I did...
Can you repeat that? I'm not quite tracking what you were just saying.
Well, if you compare on a per capita basis with the City of Loma Linda to, say, the City of...
So the salary compensation that councilmen in Loma Linda are paid is per capita higher than every other city surveyed by Loma Linda. That's
Yes.
what I'm reading.
Yes. In reality, for Fontana, it's 780%. Now, after I looked at this, and after I had to turn in the report, because I turned in the report a week ago, I had noticed for cities, as the cities got larger, the amounts got larger. And I thought, was there a way in which the state of California kind of adjusts for this? And there is. If we read the law correctly, and I'm not an attorney, but in that law, I believe it's part of where you got the 5% increase, is that certain populations get certain amounts. And it starts up from 0 to 35,000, you get 300, and from 35,000 to 50,000, you get 400. And so I took that as a base. And what I did was I applied it to the rest of the cities and see how they fared with that base. And what that base does is that for like 50,000, between 150,000 for a population, it's about half of what it is for a very small city. So it does adjust a little bit. what I did was I compared the base. And what came out, it was kind of an adjustment with the population and also from that base so that you could have some comparisons. And the comparisons are kind of interesting. For a city like Redlands, from their base, they're only 107%. That means they've only increased their salary by 7% over that base. You could take somebody like Fontana, which is about 8 times as large as we are, and it's only 180% of their base that the state had gone through. You could take Grand Terrace, which is smaller than us, and it's 262. If I take what your original rates were at 713, somewhere around there, you were already, Loma Linda was already 351 above their base per
Based
capita.
on population.
Based on population. Nobody in the survey even comes close to the next one. When you increased it to 1,066, you're now 525% above base.
Ask if, I mean, it's interesting. I love numbers, so it's interesting to me. Is the model that you're using to draw comparisons across cities, is that a standard model that's used, or?
Well, I'm using a per capita base, and I'm also using what the state has initially allowed for reimbursement or salaries. And so beyond that, it's not a standard model. I don't think there is a standard model.
Okay.
But what it does do, it provides some kind of basis to be able to kind of look across. Either way I do this, it doesn't look good. So you're at 525% above. The numbers in this case is that if you believe that a per capita is a valid tool, then since it's so far off, the only other city that even comes close is Chino. And that's over 3 times our size, and they're only at 395. So I think the story is that if that was your intent, it's your decision. If that wasn't your intent, then you might want to have some different action on it. So again, I want to be the court jester. I just want to say some truth and leave it with you. But with that, we notice that you kind of just jump ahead of all the other concessions that you've replaced with the employees. Again, that imbalance problem. This fixed cost will be year after year. As one of the councilmen said, it's a truck. It's a truck this year. It's a truck next year. It's a truck the following year. So it seems like it's maybe a couple of water molecules in the ocean, but it does add up over time. And if it's perceived that you're way over, then it's something that you may want to work with.
For sake of all the reporters that are sitting out there and taking diligent notes of what you're saying, when you did the salary comparisons, did you take into account other comps that some of those other councils get, such as vehicle allowances, cell phones, and things like that?
No, the purest one I just wanted to take was the salaries, because I know for the city of Loma Linda, your salaries, in effect, drive almost everything else, except for those additional reimbursements and arrangements. So I just wanted to keep it at that level. And from the survey that was done, it's not complete. So this is by far, it's not an absolute definitive, but just based on salaries, there might be some concern that you might want to look at. The other observation on this is that the Budget Committee wishes to thank the staff for creating a schedule of accrued and accruing vehicle equipment costs and replacement estimates. That's been on our wish list for over 14 years. And that can be used in the future to guide you for allocating certain resources to keep that program up. Now for the recommendations. We noticed that you are continuing with the replacement of concessions that were made to the employees, which we have agreed to every year. We've already kind of discussed the City Council's reimbursement. We don't see any reason to use the unrestricted cash at this time for paying any additional costs for the deficit. We want to be thankful that all the city councils before, and including the current one, has allowed the accruing of the fund status or the reserves. That has been a kind of defining moment for a lot of Loma Lindas and their budget, is that we're very unusual in the state, that we do have as much healthy reserves as possible to this point. However, I think we're now coming to the point that we have like our vehicle replacement fund, but there's no policy on how it works. We have a boatload of money, and we have a boatload of costs. And believe me, the boatload of money is not going to float the boatload of costs. So there has to be a policy in how things are going to be added to it and how things are going to be paid out of it. So we would like to have the City Council be able to generate some kind of policy and how it works, what's defined, so that you know how it works and how the city can continue to fund it and keep it in check and make it a viable program. All these are pretty much right out of the League of Cities suggestions on how to handle reserves. The city has never had a policy on how to handle a reserve, and we think it's time, since we now have an allocation tool to see what is out there and the scope of that, we should maybe have now some policy to back that up.
Let me ask, in your recommendations, you have a solid bullet, the second bullet down the page, which is the one you've been discussing, and then just below that there's a circle that's indented. So when you say at the beginning of that second, of that hollow bullet, with the new vehicle replacement schedule tool, you're referring to your recommendation in the above bullet, is that correct? In other words, once the policy is in place, that's what you're calling a tool?
Yeah, the tool would be the tool is part of the
how we prioritize and utilize the.
Well, the tool would be the schedule,
Yeah.
The schedule of replacement.
Okay.
And then the policy would be how you would want to use that tool.
Okay.
And the rest is usually the Budget Committee recommends on this point is how everybody has worked together and everything else, which has been many years. That's what's happened, is that it looked like everybody was on the same page, everybody's rowing in the same direction. Except for this year, we have enough reservations to not provide that. But we will commend those that are truly working to ensure that Loma Linda will be in a better position than most cities, which I still think it is. And hopefully, ongoing review and responsiveness by the city staff, city manager, council to match revenue and expenditures will continue. And hopefully continued workable relations between city managers, staff, unions in finding reasonable solutions to current circumstances. So that kind of ends our report. Any questions?
I appreciate the energy and thought that you put into this, and I think I'm confident that we're all working towards the same outcomes. We're trying to figure out which pathway to take to get there. There's a couple of your, a little further down the page, there are a few things I'm not quite sure I understand. The total estimated vehicle replacement is $7.4 million, which comes out of the budget, right? Then estimated annual contribution rate is $453,000. Is that's, how did we come to that?
This is, remember at the last workshop, I gave you the 11 by 17 worksheet of all the
Yeah,
vehicles that we
yes.
have in the city.
Yeah.
And then we put in how much it was cost us to purchase the vehicles. What's the life expectancy for this vehicle and how much replacement cost for this vehicle. And they divided by the number of years, the replacement cost, that's the dollar amount that we should budget for all the vehicles. So that come time when the car is ready to be replaced, we have enough money in the reserve.
Amortization.
Yes, to purchase that vehicles, replace it, I mean.
So you don't dispute these numbers. The $7.4 million is the total of all the vehicles
Yes.
that need replacement over time.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's working on that. I have a question about reserves. So compared to other cities, we have about a third of our annual budget in reserves. Is that a higher or low number compared to other cities around here?
Very high.
How high?
I said very high.
Very
Very
high.
high.
Do you know what the next closest city has in reserves as far as a percentage of their budget?
There are other cities with significant reserves. I think Highland has high reserve.
But have a higher reserve.
Yeah, and it's not a third. I think it's about a half. It's over a half.
Okay.
Our reserves are 10.5 million,
Yeah.
and our budget is 18. So just do the math. It's about
And
high
who-
50s.
Who determines ultimately how much money per year we put into reserves? The council through recommendation of the budget committee?
Is
It's whatever the surplus is.
what is the balance is, yeah.
On an annual
Well,
basis.
not necessarily surplus.
It's not a surplus. We're actually
It-
budgeting a reserve amount, correct?
You can, it's just like somebody wanting to save for his child college. You may sacrifice being a local latte every day to make sure you could do that, but that would be an expenditure you would not be making to make that saving work. So it's not necessarily just an excess.
If I may say, originally, when we first decided to establish a reserve fund, I guess the recommendation was 25% of the expenditures. That's when we first started, way back in the day. So, and that was just a target that was recommended, I think, both by the city manager at the time and the budget committee, just depending on our current resources that were available, and that was our target that we were shooting to. And through the years, we were able to add and now kind of exceed that amount.
So for, say, the last 5 years, can you give us a number of what we've hit for each year, or is that hard to do right now?
Actually,
At the beginning of this year, we have 84%.
so if we just take the reserves, which are the assigned and the committed reserves, which are the equipment replacement, and the 5.5 million of rainy day, right now the calculation is 30%, and if we take the whole 10%, we're at 56%.
So the
Our
function.
reserves were approaching 10 months at the depth of the recession and in the recovery phase of the recession. And that's because our budget was very small. What happened is the reserves didn't grow as fast as the budget, so the percentage dropped, but the reserves have always grown every year. And this year, because of multiple things, including a decision to increase public safety, 1 time or 10 times, how long will the insurance rate be high?
So we have to pay it back, so it's,
Probably what, 3 years?
So a three-time
Years.
unexpected hit on insurance because of pent-up, like you guys said, pent-up demand for upkeep of the city that was forestalled by the recession. So all of those things have driven us into a position where we're budgeting a deficit. We haven't passed it yet, so it hasn't happened yet. And my question is, what is let's say we stood firm and said we are going to have a balanced budget on the books, and JARB's usual magic of restraining expenses for the year will result in another large surplus. So we can either play the game where we demand that the budget be balanced up front, and then he tightens the belt and gives us a surplus, or we allow the budget to look like it's in deficit, and then he does his usual belt tightening, and it comes in as a balanced budget, or which one would be more satisfying? Because I think that's what's probably going to end up happening. And my question is, if you can do that belt tightening, why not do it in the budget process as opposed to? See, it all comes down to conservatism. Do you have a conservative expenditure estimate, which is high? That's a conservative expenditure estimate. You go high because you're estimating that you're going to have more deficit than you think. You don't want to estimate you'll have less deficit than you think, because that's not conservative. I hate the word conservative, by the way, because it goes both directions. And then we're estimating our revenues, which is a complete, wet finger in the wind. For example, I talked to the county assessor, and he said that they've been way behind in unwinding the Prop 8 assessment reductions, and they're going to be catching up in the next year. I don't know whether that will affect this year's taxation or the next year's taxation. Probably will be delayed. So we're estimating a 1% increase in property tax, but I think it will probably be more than that. But I certainly wouldn't want to be unconservative and estimate a windfall in that department. Besides, it's a small item in Loma Linda because half of the town is tax exempt. So my question is, if the Budget Committee were given the task to balance this budget, wrest control of its runaway train, and return it back to the tracks, what would you cut? What would you change in terms of estimates of revenue and estimates of expenses? Would you take into account JARB's historic percentage cut to the budget and just budget it? Or what would we do? How would you achieve it?
Well, it's kind of it's a no-win question. I'm not going to answer it that way. What I will answer is that you have to be mindful that you do have all these demands that are coming due. And to artificially say, oh, we'll just cut out 25 widgets over here, we won't replace that car over here, and say we're magically balanced, that's not quite true. And that's something that at the Budget Committee have always been very attuned to, is that a lot of shenanigans in prior city managers was able to produce that balanced budget and everything looked great, but every year certain things got worse and worse. So it hit a lot of things, and that's why we keep on coming back. A policy to be able to try and create that sustainable entities in which the reserves are part. Policies to guide that, so that if you think you have extra money, you know you're going to have to pay something down against those reserves to keep it going. And so we're looking for that guidance to do that, is to sit there and come up with something. It could be general, and the best thing is I don't want to see a policy that starts off with, we're going to put X number of dollars in every year. That's never going to work. However, guidelines, what we can try to commit to and things that if we have left over, and if there is savings, to put that over there, automatically go into that, so that it gets taken care of, so it doesn't get into I don't want to say a slush fund, because that's kind of illegal stuff, but something that can just be spent any way you want it. You already know you have to spend it. Let's just set a policy to try and get it there. So balancing a budget is easy. Just balance it out. Just cross out some stuff that's not there anymore. You do budgets, I do budgets. It's easy enough to do. But if you're trying to show reality, then that's a lot harder budget. So to sit there and say, yeah, let's just balance it and play with it and go with that, that's fine. But I don't think that's the right.
So I'm glad you're not endorsing budget tricks. Okay, budget tricks are off the table.
Yes.
If we told you, come back with a recommendation in the next 5 minutes, because you guys already chewed this thing over enough, what would you cut to balance the budget?
It would take a little bit longer than 5 minutes to come back.
That was all I gave you.
Yeah.
I want your gut reaction.
Okay, I'd say first thing, cut your wages. Because that was voluntary.
Council salary, that's obviously what's struck the ire. So
What else? You got a lot of room. You got a long way to go.
Okay, well,
That's still
that's
not going to bring us
about,
down, so we have to.
Because one of the arguments
about
is
4% there.
if we do the tough decisions and get a balanced budget, then by some of the comments that I've heard, it would be more justified to have a salary increase.
Only if you think it's to
So
the
we could
magnitude
go
that-
with a machete to the budget, and then we're heroes and deserve a pay increase.
Well, if you take a look at a quarter of the base pay, then it looks like a lot of other cities have never done that.
Yeah.
So you would be flying in the face of that. So
I take exception to that comparison. And you know how it played out here on the dais 2 weeks ago, and there were some of us that voted for it and some of us that didn't. However, I take exception to that because I know that every city is completely different. And I know that there are some cities that have a car allowance. There are some cities that have other things that are the incentive to get people involved and to get people to do this type of work. And a lot of the discussion we had was our particular council members sitting on multiple committees and spending time running around constantly. It just seems like we're putting a lot of extra work in here, and and I understand where it gets hard for some of us. So without hashing that out, I mean, if the feeling is that we need to change something there because of that perception, then maybe that's something we need to look at. Although I'm not somebody who really caves to perception. However, taking that off the table, like the mayor says, how do we then get to where you would like us to be? Because it is important to me what you guys think. It's always been very important to me. I think you guys are an exceptional committee. We have an exceptional finance director, and this city doesn't work or operate without the combination of the two, the committee and our staff. So what do we do? I mean, there were some of you on the committee that came and lauded for extra law enforcement because we have seen increase in crime. And so we knew that was a direction with all the people that stood up and complained that we needed to do. And so we've eaten into that with public safety increases. Do we reverse that and go back? I mean, where do we do? Do we pass the cost on somewhere else? You know, we're struggling now with a decision with the medical center, who is not typically a big contributor to taxes, but is building a big high-rise building, and some of our mitigation measures to attach some public safety requirements to that, and we're getting pushback from the medical center. Why should we have to pay that? So where do we go? How do we figure this all out? And I mean, I feel like we're at the 11th hour here, and we're going to have a debate on it. And I'm kind of unhappy about that. I wish we had put this to bed, and wish we could have worked this all out.
I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask staff, because in the discussion, I may have misunderstood some of what was said. First of all, is it true that we have never submitted a budget with a deficit in the last 20 years? Because I think I've heard that we have, and it all works out in the end. But that was one of the opening statements I heard, is we've never submitted, and this is a step backwards now.
I don't know about 20 years because I've only been doing this this is my 8 years that I do the budget. So, Diana,
As far as I can recall, I do not believe we've ever submitted a deficit budget. As far as the initial budget, there have been where you go back and do appropriations, where you spend out of reserves for one-time items. So that then does create kind of a deficit spending budget at that point. But as far as the initial adopted budget, I can't recall that we've submitted a deficit spending budget.
Because there were some comments 2 weeks ago that, well, we always have a deficit, but, JARB is mystical and magical and makes it all work in the end. So, okay, then I got that clarification. The second question I need help with is, what benefits did we cut during the economic downturn that have not yet been restored?
yes, the city first off, we freeze any pay raise, and then after that we did the furlough, 5% furlough, and then the following year we gave them back the furlough because I need people to come to work. But what I did was I asked them to pay 7% into employee retirement contribution, which means they take a 7% cut, and that is the 7% cut that I reduce. And then throughout the past couple,
I know it's semantics, but at the same time, did the city council also take that same separate?
yes, the city council did take the same cut.
It's not 100% equally the same, but there was a move where everybody.
Correct. We did equal. Yes, yes.
And that was part of a statewide move. We weren't the only ones doing that.
But some other city did not do it.
Yeah, but that
But we wanted
we're the better run city because we did. Because to me, it never made any sense that the employee share was paid by the employer. I don't know. It just never struck me as a reasonable thing.
Is that the only that's the only change that we haven't made whole?
Correct.
If we even want to do that. So did you have other things in mind? Because, I heard kind of a doom and gloom assessment of this year's budget, and we've got, that this could represent a shift in our physical competence, and yet I'm not hearing that there's a lot that's out there that hasn't been made whole.
Well, if again, you have to take in consideration that part of the concession has been made whole, but there's other items that have been delayed, and that's the stuff that's been kind of withheld. It's just we're not going to recognize it at this time as an expense.
Vehicle replacement?
Some vehicle replacements. You're going to have some street repairs. You're going to have some sewer repairs. You're going to have those would be special funds, but I mean. All those items that you would pay for sometimes are not included. The first step was trying to get a vehicle replacement schedule to try and see what scope that is. And now we know what the scope is. And so with that, a policy needs to be done to try and guide us to try and keep that in a position where it can maintain itself and also fulfill its mandate, and that is to pay for things when they're needed, rather than going out and borrowing. So the health comes from part of the sustainable part is that you have to contribute to it at the same time take stuff out of it.
Sure. No, I understand.
So again, we're looking for that policy. The gloom and doom is not being able to assess that, and the council recognized that as a real cost. We've been lucky in which we do have some reserves that have been allowed to build. You guys could have went in there and said, we want the best looking gold fire truck in the nation, and you could have paid for it out of reserves. But you've been restrained in doing a lot of things. But now it's time to sit there and recognize that we do have a lot of delayed expenses that are going to be coming. And what are we going to do about it? We need a policy for that. And so the vehicle fund is just kind of like one of those first steps, is sitting there, let's take a look at our assets. Let's take a figure out what it's going to cost us to replace it. And let's have a plan to be able to replace those. And so the gloom and doom is every year we're told that we have nice, healthy reserves, but they're not really committed with a plan on how it's going to maintain.
No, I understand.
A new city council could come in and just wipe it out on some folly of some sort.
We heard some talk today about repayment of owed monies that the state had shortchanged us on, and some other things, and all that money goes into a lot of these special projects funds, which in turn can be used for like one-time expenditures like vehicle replacement. I realize it's not the schedule that we're talking about, but we're talking about a significant amount of money that could be reused to do vehicles and things like that. And I'm in agreement. We have the black eye, and the black eye was what happened 2 weeks ago. But if we remove the black eye from the screen here, we still are in a deficit because we still decided we wanted to add public safety and do some other projects. So again, I'm back to what the mayor is trying to pull out is where do we go? What do we do? And I may be totally understanding it wrong, but the way I see it, I mean, we are the ones that say this is what the budget is, and whether or not we're in the budget or not in the budget, I still think overall we've been fairly conservative in trying to do the right thing. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, to me it comes down to deciding if you're going to have a smoothing function in your analysis of the trajectory of the city budget. Is the city budget, are there one-time costs that are causing this temporary setback, or are they just fixed forever costs? And it predicts that we'll go into deficit, and pretty soon we'll be on par with Barack Obama. To me, I see this.
We're going national.
Well, he doubled their deficit, our collective deficit, in 8 years. So
Let's compare ourselves to another.
I think it's
city.
public record. I don't think that that's happening to the city. I see our reserve as a bit of a bellows, and it inhales and it exhales. And this is one of those minor exhalation years because public safety is a high priority. And this insurance setback is a temporary sigh and exhalation that we have to take. Now the question is, are we going to be rigid? And last year we had a $2.3 million surplus, and we're going to go, well, we can have a $50 million surplus one year, and if there's a deficit the next year, we have to lay off a bunch of people. I don't think that would be reasonable. I think that if you use the bellows model, it's got some breathing room, and the trajectory is in a positive direction. I would vote no on this budget if I thought that this was the beginning of a downward trend in revenue, and we were not staying ahead of it, because I was the biggest proponent of staying ahead of the reduction in revenues when the Great Recession hit, and it paid off. I don't think that's the case. If anybody thinks that's the case, speak up. So I don't see this as being a doom and gloom scenario. I see it as being unfortunate from the perspective of every year has to be balanced. But I think if you think in terms of a running 3-year budget, we have massive surpluses. If you just do a running 1-year budget, we have a temporary dip. I don't see it as being a structural deficit. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. I'm a budget hawk myself, always have been. And if I were President of the United States, and the press can quote me on this.
Is this an announcement?
Yeah,
You're going to make America.
I'm running a fourth party. There's already a third. Now, if I were the president, I'd veto the whole budget until they got it down to about 40% of its current size. But that's what I define as a budget hawk. I don't think we're bloated like the federal government. I think we've got fairly reasonable people here who see this as just a temporary exhalation in our reserves, and that's my comment.
Yes.
Councilman Leonard has been composing a list of fine questions over there that are going to stump us all.
This button isn't working.
Just a few observations. I was reading through your recommendation here, and one of your points that you put in there that was said was, quote, "I want it all," unquote. I don't remember anybody saying that. Does anybody remember anybody saying, "I want it all"? Yes. Who said that? Moving. Was he kidding? Was he laughing? Because I don't remember hearing that.
That was then an open session with the Budget Committee. He came to our meeting, and the question was, what do you need? And he replied with, "I want it all."
Okay.
Not just one of us, the entire committee. He said it a number of times.
To the committee?
Yes.
Secondly, Mr. Duper, I think his comment is good in that I was thinking the same thing. If you want to say we've compared to other cities, then I think you need to compare apples to apples. And I think, personally, it's a little disingenuous just to compare salaries when we know for a fact that other cities do all sorts of other things that aren't salaries. So I would feel a lot more comfortable if you came in and said the total package is this, the total package is this, the total package is this. So
Unfortunately, the survey wasn't as complete as I would have liked it to make it be able to make that, because I too would like to take the total. But as you well know, your base pay in effect drives a lot of other benefits and everything else, and that becomes the most of your compensation. So to take a portion of that drives the rest, a majority of it, it provides enough information to make a comparison. May not be an absolute, but it shows you direction, and it shows you probably a certain amount of magnitude. So with that, I wouldn't say that it's completely off, but it would probably maybe go for another thing and say maybe you want to take a look at it and try and get the rest of the information. And I don't mind doing the calculations again to go apples to apples, but I think that the magnitudes will probably be close to the same. But that would be fine with me. The Budget Committee would be willing to do that.
I'm just pointing that out because I think that if we make comparisons, we ought to be, comparing along the same line. The other thing was, I'm not sure necessarily a per capita figure is actually the right exact way to go. I mean, is it? It's work. It's still coming to city councils. It's still, coming and going to all these other committees like he mentioned. So I don't know. I'm just saying I think that it's a little, the presentation might be just a little bit skewed a little bit the way you gave it. Having said that, however, I labored a long time in my mind last time of what to vote. What was presented last time was, I think, kind of incomplete. And I know Mr. Daly was kind of saying, I want to have more information, I want to have more information. And I voted yes for it with the idea, that was my quote there, that we could always adjust it later. I voted yes for it with the idea that we could get a little more information on a final budget here. And so I guess my question to you would be, as we've asked, I guess, what you would do, it seems like I don't see any recommendations other than cut the city council salary, and then we're still in debt, I think, according to that.
Well, actually, in here, there is a recommendation, and that was, at your option, which you can do on anything, you can waive it. And the suggestion is you could waive the increase until
I mean, in addition to that one thing.
Until until it's balanced. In effect, what you're doing is you're withholding it until the budget is balanced to the point. The revenues come in and make it up, then you can unwaive
I
that.
understand.
In fact.
I mean, recommendations other than that one, like he said, the elephant in the room. So, okay, here's another question I have then. Do you think that our previous salary, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic, I'm trying to work this thing out. Do you think that the previous salary based on your survey was high, low, or fair?
You were, about 3. Your old salary was 351% above base.
What is base again?
The base would be the amount that the state of California sets up a size of a city and reimbursement base. I'm using that as a base because that's what I use it as. For example, from 0 to 35,000 is $300. From 35,000 to 50,000, it's $400. From 50,000 to 75,000, it's $500. From 75,000 to 150,000, it's $600. So I use that as a base. As you can see, there's kind of economies of scale that are going on as they figure that there's a certain amount of work that you have to do. There's a higher reimbursement for lower communities and a smaller reimbursement for larger communities. That's already built in that base. I believe the law indicates that you could use that or use another formula or whatever that you wanted to do, but that was a suggestion, I believe. Then you can change that at 5% a year. And that's what you chose to do. It didn't say you had to use 5%.
So when did the base apply? Does the base go up 5% a year, or is it still always the same base?
No, it's the same base.
And it was written into law when?
Good question. But if most of the communities are kind of staying with that salary range with only being maybe 100 or 200% higher, and we're already at 300%, that tells you we've gone beyond that base, no matter when it was put in place.
And they have various allowances and things that...
Yeah, that, again, if we wanted to do complete apples to apples, that'd be one thing. But again, I'm saying the base salary drives so many other items for your benefits and everything else that it generates most part of the compensation package. So with that, you were already at 300% before. Now you're at 525%. Again, as a court jester, I'm just speaking a truth. It may not be an absolute thing, but the whole concept is I think it's something that to be dealt with. And again, you're the kings. You guys get to make the decisions. But at least the truth was spoken. And if it comes back and haunts you later for whatever reason, the court jester made the attempt.
I actually don't like that term. I truly believe, and I believe that we all work for you as a citizen of this community. So, and I hope we are never, and obviously we're here right now and you're saying it, so I would say I'd hoped we'd never ever hear that or have to deal with that. I don't want to be that type of counsel or that type of council member. But when I mentioned earlier about some of the other things and activities, in years past, this community has always been viewed as kind of isolated on the stage of other cities in regards to interacting with other groups, being on, say, for example, League of Cities, or being involved in the airport or JPAs or whatever other things that are out there. And in the past, Loma Linda has always just been kind of quiet, not on an island by themselves. And what I've seen in the 6 years that I've been here is we have a group of people that are more engaged on more communities and more out there. We have people that are heavily involved in Sandbag, people that are heavily involved in the airport, in the IVDA, myself on the League of Cities. We have to beg cities to send a representative to League of Cities meetings and dinners. And that is one of the most important organizations in the state because that represents the local control that we all desperately want. And when I look at other cities and how their councils operate and the apathy that I see there as opposed to the amount of work that our folks are involved in here, it really is disparate. And I'm trying to justify too. And I actually went into last 2 weeks meeting, the meeting 2 weeks ago. I went in with the idea that I was going to vote for it. I thought it was a good thing. I thought it was deserved. And again, like my comments, I don't think it necessarily applies to any of us specifically, but whoever ends up taking the seat down the road and how it continues forward, whether or not we can recruit the right people to want to do this or get involved in local politics that'll have the right attitude and right direction. But after listening, and I heard some reservation, I'm glad you came to the meeting. I heard some reservation, and I felt like I was getting a sense that maybe we shouldn't do that. And that's why I decided to vote no on it. But I was very close to voting the other way. And now it hurts because I think we are a very good council. We don't always agree on everything, but I think we do our best and we do a good job. And I was reading an article in the Sun's article today. I'm not sure if that reporter's here, or yesterday or whenever it was, that talked about Loma Linda and talked about the increase. And then I was reading comments from people down at the bottom, and somebody wrote in there, "Oh, they should be investigated. They're all dirty." I take serious offense to that because I think this is one of the cleanest, best-run cities in the freaking state of California. And I know other council members, and I know other cities, and the crap that they go through. And I think this thing is very well run. And it's not just because of us, although I think we are a component to that. It's because of an excellent city staff. And I apologize, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but what really stinks about this whole thing is I'm sure some reporter out there is going to paint some picture in order to get a byline tomorrow, and our city will be out there when it really doesn't need to be, and a focus needs to be somewhere else. We're all trying to do the best thing, and it just really sucks, that's all. End of rant, sorry.
A couple comments. I happen to agree with you and feel you've made a good point in terms of evolving some kind of policy guidelines for how to utilize some of these reserve funds. I think I see some merit in that, and I think we need to look at it, and we're probably going to need the help of the Budget Committee to draft some of those. The issue of salaries I find just kind of annoying because anybody that would do this for the paltry amount of money we're talking about needs to go explore other careers. It's not why you do this. You do it because you want to make a contribution and have an impact in your community. I mean, we're talking about $300 and whatever additional a month. And that, I don't mean to diminish that that's significant money, probably more significant for some than others. But that's why my vote last week basically meant let's just get this thing off the table so it doesn't clutter up the other more important discussions about decisions we need to make for the city. You know, I would like to see, and I'm coming back to some of the mayor's comments, I'd like to see something specific in terms of recommendations to us as well. If we take the salary increase off the table, even if it's just for the purpose of discussion, then let's do that. And then I want to know what other meaningful impact we can have on the budget so that we can submit a balanced budget. I'm not comfortable with this being the first year I'm not overly concerned about it, but I don't like the taste of it in my mouth. I'd like to see us have a balanced budget. But with that, that would mean I think we need some specifics, just like taking salary raise off the table, then we take that off. What else are we going to add to that list of not to be included items for this year's budget in order to balance it. That's the kind of help that would be useful to me. And then I'd be happy to be a part of any discussion to start exploring policy guidelines for how to utilize some of these reserve funds.
Can I have a comment? Like this fiscal year, when we closed the book from last fiscal year, we found out that we had about over $200 million in surplus. And so what we did this year was we did spend the money on a lot of one-time expenditures, like purchase the fire engine, fix the roof, get ready for El Nino, the flood. So what I would recommend that yes, this year is we have a little deficit, which is $500,000. To me, it's a dip. And after we close the book for this year, I'd be happy to come back and look at this budget again in the mid-year budget review to see where we're going. The trend is the revenues start coming up. I'm hoping that the hotel that's going to be built, that we plan to be completed within the year, that will bring in some revenue. And additional hotel that we've been meeting with potential builders for the hotel will be coming in. That could be the trend that we can look at. And I cut the police before 5 years ago. We increased it this year, and we plan to increase it again next year. We might have to, if worse come to worse, we might have to reduce it a little bit, but it's something that we can do. So I think what we plan for next year is just a blip that I think we can recover. And if not, we will have a serious look at the budget again at the mid-year review and see where we are.
I think waiting a little bit, even though we may be in budget, to kind of put it in perspective. A few years ago, if I remember correctly, there was a big outcry on President Obama traveling because the cost was so high to go. It's kind of like your guys' pay increase. Just as his is probably a couple of water molecules in the ocean of the budget, your pay increase in the total of the budget is very, very small. It's not going to break the bank, even if you take the higher rate. That's in perspective of the whole thing. Part of, I think the concern that we had was basically perception and a warning of a difference in change in attitude. So again, as a budget-wise, it's not going to break anything. But is it an attitude change? And we won't see that for another couple cycles yet. But if it is, we're pointing it out now. And if you want to do something with it, then that's fine. Not here to admonish, but to help. And this is just a warning that we see that we're pointing out. If the press decides to take this any other direction than that, it's yellow journalism. Okay, so we both know that it's not going to kill anything, and it's just a direction.
I got to tell you, you know what really bothers me the most is that I want to know that if I walk into the room and I see any of the three of you, that that we have mutual admiration and respect, and that we care about each other. And I don't like, the biggest thing that I don't like about this is that my fear is there is a wedge that is there, and I don't want that to exist. So I want to know on a personal level what I can do to make sure that we're okay. And you and I already had this discussion the other day, and I really truly mean that. I really look up to you guys especially, and it's unfortunate that we don't always agree on everything, but I want you to still believe in us and believe in this council and this city that we are still trying to do the right thing. So
I think that, I don't think it needs to be said, is that we think that everybody's kind of working from an even hand. And our job is to kind of point stuff out. It's your job to make a decision. And I think that respect is still there. If you guys were to keep whatever you guys decided to do, as always, we take it and we just move on with it for the next cycle. So, but like I said, we thought we'd point these items out to you.
Since nobody echoed my comments, I'm going to echo my own comments. I have a question. Does the revenue to the city, does it come in lumpily, or does it come in even every month? Does it come in lumps?
Some revenue comes in steadily. Others come in quarterly, and others come in semi-annually. So the biggest one, which will change coming up, is sales tax. We get a monthly advance, and then at the quarter ending, they true it up. With the elimination of the triple flip, we will now be seeing that 25% of the 1% that the state used to withhold and only distribute twice a year. We will start seeing that revenue come in steadily on the monthly advances and then the quarterly catch-ups. So we will see that. Property tax comes in not monthly. They have a schedule that when they do their collections, then at a certain percentage, then they distribute, which comes in. The bulk of it is twice a year. We do get some allocations kind of quarterly that are the trickle-ins.
So property tax is paid in November?
We generally see the bulk come in
April.
December, and then again in May.
Okay, so it's a month after we pay the assessor's office. Yeah, my point in asking that is that, you know, it's somewhat arbitrary that we set budget cycles in the annual peregrinations of the earth around the sun. If we had every 4-month budgets, we would have a deficit in one budget, a huge surplus in the next budget, you know, if we had lumpy revenues. And I used to be on the board of the American Lung Association, and they got a big lump when the Christmas seal revenue came in, and they were in deficit the first half of the year and big surplus the second half of the year. And if they happen to have semi-annual budgets, they would have to lay everybody off the first half of the year, and then they, you know, you've got to have a balanced budget. So you lay everybody off the first half of the year, there's no revenue, and then you hire them all back in January, and you lay them off in July. And I'm exaggerating the point to say that I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in an organization where there are ebbs and flows of revenues that are on a larger cycle than 1 year. It doesn't make any sense to slavishly chop your head off in a short year. You know, because we could balance the budget. We could say, yep, in order to afford this insurance premium, we're going to lay off 2 cops. You know, I think that would be a fiscally prudent thing to do, and it would be a public safety stupid thing to do. And I think we have to balance those things. So that's why I said, and I'm echoing my comments before, that the budget, I think, should be reckoned. I know there's an annual budget requirement. In order to, you have to do a budgeting process. But I think in terms of reckoning the trajectory of the budget, it should be a running 2 or 3 year amount, because it just creates this, you know, if you get into one of these sinusoidal cycles where you end up with surpluses and deficits, and you cut the budget every time it goes into a deficit, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And to the extent that's what's happening, I think I would propose that maybe the Budget Committee take this up and comment on it and let me know if that's a good idea or not. Because, you know, if you look at the way we handled the surplus last year, a chunk of it went into reserves, and a chunk of it went into one-time purchases of fire apparatus, et cetera. Was that deficit, or was it a one-time purchase? Was that a deficit spending? I'm not sure we accounted for it that way, but it really was. So how do we deal with that? That's why we put in place the equipment replacement fund, because we didn't want to have to, buy $1 million fire truck and just cash flow it for 1 year. It's an expenditure every 10 years, or every 15 years. So you need to amortize it. So I think that principle can be extended to the entire budget because of these one-time hits. And I'm more interested in the trajectory. I'm interested in the second derivative of the budget process. Is it in a nosedive with a negative second derivative, or is it in a climb?
That's part of what our concern was, especially for the unknown parts of the budget, which would be part of, like the schedule allows us to kind of see that for the first time. I think part of the recommendations that should be done for all capital assets throughout the city, so that we would know what those are. Then, of course, your concept of having a long-term budget range to see if it's going up or down is a lot easier to see if you know what those expenses are, yeah, and what your projected revenue is. So I don't have any issue with having a long-range budget in that kind of a form.
And then you have to decide, do you need a $4 or $5 million capital replacement reserve if you're going to be amortizing it and essentially funding it every year? But it's all, we all know that our partitions in our reserves are artificial.
Yes.
So, they're there as, rainy day, whatever that is. Because of El Nino, you have a rainy day, and La Nina, you don't.
However, you can make it more permanent.
Yeah.
And so if the vehicle replacement fund is truly a vehicle replacement fund.
What we should be doing is decrementing it when we spend on a vehicle, and then replenishing every year, and then decrementing when we spend. Instead, what we do is we cash flow the replacements, and the fund stays exactly where it is. So which way are we going to do it? We're going to actually use it as a bank, or we're going to use it as a
That's part of the purpose of the policy, to do that.
Stuffed mattress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Procedurally, where are we? What do we need to do next? Nothing. Yeah.
Right now, just listen to the budget committee comment. Okay. So we have item C, D, E, and F, and G, and H to go.
I'll be happy to sit down.
We also have.
You have set the record now.
I'm sorry, sir. Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Now, we have a request for comment from Mr. Swigert, also a member of the committee. Do you want to speak now or later, or forever hold your peace?
I'll go now.
Okay, come forward.
Can I have the same 3 minutes?
Well, while he's coming up, Council, I was curious, and I looked it up. The government code section that set these base salaries for cities based upon population was adopted in 1949. And so
those amounts were adopted in 1949? Yes. Okay, so can you put an inflation hedge on it? When you give us our 351%?
Now we're underpaid.
Well, yeah, there are other things. No, actually, Redlands has no expense allowance at all. I talked to Pat Gilbreth about that. But you talk about Chino, and they have a car allowance. What was I going to say? Go ahead. I'll think of it.
Ready? Okay. Let's start off with a positive note. You guys are really doing a great job. I mean, if you look behind me and you see nobody, you're doing a great job. If the room was full of people and there was people standing, complaining, and mad as hell, You're doing a bad job.
I would beg to
And
differ.
I've been there.
I say the three most important citizens are here.
I see a fourth one right back.
Oh, there, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even see.
I'm going to say there's 4 committee members here that have probably combined 80 years of service to the city of Loma Linda. Totally unpaid service for 80 continuous years.
Proposing a salary for the budget committee.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. You know, but as Jay stated, we have reservations and concerns as we head into this deficit budget. We really do. Understand that we're only an advisory committee, but I believe a few weeks ago, probably within the 6 weeks time frame, I came to the council and asked if we could review your salary increase, and you granted that. I'm having dinner 2 weeks ago with family friends, unbeknownst to me that this agenda item was going to be voted on. We were told that it was going to be tonight. None of us were prepared for this. Jay's son was in the audience, and that's the only reason why he showed up. So, Phil, you asked.
But you know why it was precipitously voted on.
That was planned.
No, it was not.
It wasn't.
You know
quite-
why it was precipitously voted upon. It was in the agenda as to be deferred.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not deferred solely because of the 30-day window and seating.
Did we not know that when we
We
gave
did not.
Well, now, come on now. Is that a new requirement?
It is a conservative, using the word,
You didn't like that
legal
word.
opinion that you cannot use July as the seating date under law. We do it on a routine basis. We've always done it since I've been around. I've been around 10 years. The new city councilmen are seated in July from a June election.
Would it
from
not have been a courtesy to at least let us know that you were going to do this?
We didn't know we were going to do it until
My
the
phone,
last minute.
my phone rings 24/7.
I'll take it a step further. I was under the impression you guys were okay with it. And again, going into that meeting, I was under the impression this was something you had already discussed and was already part of the budget and part of your understanding. And then, like I said, that evening when we started having discussion up here on the dais and Jay came in late, I started getting the feeling that maybe that wasn't actually the case. But
Our
I think
plan
from
was
my
to
conversations with staff and other people, I think I got the impression that that you guys were already aware of this and we were already down the road with it. So
had no clue. It just would have been nice to know.
And that's acknowledged. The new thing that came up was the conservative legal, not opinion, but conservative comment from the city attorney that the seating officially would be occurring on June 14 and could not be delayed till July without encountering some legal risk that it could be challenged and forced to go to June 14. So based on that very conservative, non-controversial, take the easiest, most solid legal ground, the June 14 seating, tonight would not have been 30 days in advance.
Understand
And that's
that.
the only reason it happened. And
Understand
it was not known beforehand.
But knowing in advance that we did have some concerns, once you understood that there was a time limit, we would have appreciated some kind of notice. Because we were pretty much blindsided.
You were blindsided, but
Jay's
the
son
chair was not.
Jay's son Jay's son was here in the council meeting on another issue. He called his dad.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah,
I wish he had called you. But you understand the circumstance. There was no plot. And if you think there was a plot, then that's the one place where we differ.
I don't think it was a plot. I mean, it just sets a bad taste in our mouths. We tried to have some kind of a negotiation with Ovi to find out what you guys really needed, what you guys really wanted. And he came off so high that he couldn't live with anything but everything. I want it all.
But Ovi only speaks for himself, and you know that after many years of interaction.
You know, and we asked him, if you could be the only one to take it and nobody else wanted it, would you take it? He goes, yes, I would. So you're right. But I'd like to thank Mr. Daly and Mr. Duper for standing the tough ground 2 weeks ago. I'm sure that was not an easy thing to do. Torn. Yeah. You know, and because I wasn't there, the only positive statement that I saw there was, we can pass it as it's written with the max allowed, and we don't have to take it. Thank you. Why, I was looking at you.
I wasn't quoted at all. And I made extensive comments.
I know, you made extensive comments. You know, we're not saying
Probably
that you,
quote worthy.
you know, really, we're not saying you don't deserve it. It's just poor timing, and it just sets a bad precedent. And it's just the wrong message, I think, to send to the hourly employees that work for the city. Next year, you've got negotiations again. How are you going to go in front of your employees and ask for them not to get what you got? Understanding there is a vast difference in your salary and their salary. But how do you say no to that? Jarb's done a really good job of holding that down. He's done all the negotiations himself, saving the city lots of money. But I don't know. I'd like to urge you to turn down the raise. I don't know if we can call for another vote and get rid of it totally, or if you just say you don't want it. But I just think it sends a wrong message at a time where the city employees have not been made whole on everything that they took was taken away from them. And I know probably some of you, but have you guys really taken a look at that vehicle replacement schedule that was given to us? There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we could be replacing for $43,000 a year. A lot of it. That's about it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Your 3 minutes are not up.
Would you like me to go a little longer? I brought my newspaper. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for that. We have more presentation.
Are we done with this topic? We're going to talk more about it at the end, or what? You want to move on? Yeah. Okay.
It's up to you. I don't.
Okay, the next one is a fun one. It's a 5-year capital improvement projects programs. No, it's fun. It's engineering stuff, so I like it.
Right.
This is the picture of the completed I-10 freeway and Anderson Street improvement. So, the 5-year CIP is a planning document. I don't want to read it word by word, but it's a planning document. It is for a short-term and a long-term planning tools. It's not to be used as the budget okay? And the reason for that is every year, the city council approve individual budget year by year that have part of these projects in your budget itself. The CIP is broke down into 7 categories. Is the fleet, general building, parks and recreation, sewer, storm drain, street and street light, and water programs. Potential funding source, okay? If you look at the booklet itself, it have different columns that have the name of the projects, potential, the cost estimate, and potential where the money coming from, funding source. So we have about 31 different funding sources that can be used for different type of improvement. So fleet, we talked about fleet earlier. Next year, next fiscal year, I'm not planning to buy any vehicles. And the reason for that is we did this fiscal year purchase fire engine, we did purchase a couple of trucks and cars, and I don't want to go further into the deficit, so we got to hold off on purchase vehicles for this coming fiscal year. But we do plan to budget some for the following years. And I will take a look closer at the vehicle replacement plan that I did that on 11/17, so we can do that for the following years. Next, general building. This year, we spent quite a bit of money on fixing the roof, on the buildings, painting the mansard, putting the tile floor in the community room. So next year, we're not going to spend quite as much for the general building. But this project here, the Curtis Fish House tenant improvement, we not use general fund for that. We use the development impact fee for public meetings place. And the same thing with the Heritage Park site improvement. That's to put in sidewalk that lead from the street to the Heritage Park.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So the Curtis Fisk House, does that fall under like a community meeting location?
Yes. Yes, because
we could have meetings and stuff there?
yes, what we plan to do is we plan to have a historical committee meet over there, and we can use this as a museum later on, so it can be a public meeting location and public facility.
Enough room for like, say, like a League of Cities?
No, it's just one-story building. It's 1,100 square feet house. Remodel to the restroom, that's general fund. So again, for next fiscal year, I plan not to spend a lot of money on the general fund on this. And then for the further years, it's just something that I would like to do. If we have money for it, then we do it. If not, we just move it to the following years. Park. We always have a tree planting program every year, and next is the new restroom at the trailhead at Hoda Crooks Park. There's a lot of demand for the trail facility that we have, so we have been asked by the resident and the people who use the trail to provide restroom building at that location. The money for these 2 projects will come from the Park Development Impact Fee. Again, not from general fund. Sewer improvement. I'm sorry, kind of small, but again, next year we budget 0 amount for sewer. In the past couple of years, we did improvement to the sewer, and because the revenue from the sewer is a function of water. So because the state asks us to conserve water, so we have less revenue coming in for sewer. So I'm not planning to do any project for next fiscal year. Street improvement. This is the street improvement that we have been doing for the past 10 years. For this year, what we did, it didn't come up with a good screen. We did pave the Mountain View from Lawton to Beaumont, Lawton from Mountain View to Whittier, Whittier from the railroad track to Beaumont. We did Hinckley. We did a couple of subdivision in here. And majority of the money, we did put the money into Anderson and Redlands Boulevard street improvement. For next year, what we plan to do is do pavement rehabilitation on Anderson from Court Street to Stewart Street. And because the Sandbag and us just completed portion from the freeway to Court Street as part of I-10 Tippecanoe interchange. We plan to do a pavement rehabilitation on University from Barton Road to campus, and then from campus from University Court to Stewart Street. So that budget for next fiscal year.
Is that street going to get widened at the same time?
Yes, sir. Yes, we plan to widen a campus from University to Stewart.
Yeah, okay.
In addition to that, I have been working on the intersection at Redlands and California. Now, the project will not get completed next fiscal year, but what my plan is to have it start construction not this summer, but the following summer, 2017. We already started doing design. We already met with the county flood control to come up with the design for the box culvert. I will be having a meeting with the quality of life director instead of public works, that quality of life director at the city of Redlands to help us with the funding and plan checking and so forth.
I mean, shouldn't that be a 50-50 split?
No, sir. More likely because majority of improvement, development that going to happen south of Redlands, south of California Street is going to be in the city of Loma Linda. And I met with them before. This project is not there on their priority list. Now, the money to use for this project will be coming from the remaining of RDA bond that we plan to spend the money.
Money that would have been spent on Stewart Street had it not been politically blocked.
Yes.
Prior to the forfeiture to the state.
So
let's just say the impoundment by the state.
In addition to that, we plan to do a left turn pocket on Barton Road at Mountain View. This is for the westbound left turn pocket at Mountain View, and also at Barton and Loma Linda Drive right here in front of the City Hall here, to add the length of the left turn pocket.
Is there already a left turn pocket?
There is.
Westbound Barton at Mountain View?
Yes, but we want to make it longer.
Oh,
Okay, and so that's what we plan for next fiscal year. The money for this, none of this is from general fund. Okay, so next water line improvement. For next fiscal year, we plan to again continue to do the water meter replacement. We did a lot during the past couple of years, but we're going to slow down. Next year, we plan to replace the water line over at Curtis, Rosarita, Yardley, in this area right here. The plan is being designed right now. My goal is to go out to bid next month, and July award the contract and do all this improvement, because it will connect to the water line at University. And then after the water line is completed, then we will pave University.
And that neighborhood has a lot of water main ruptures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the reason why we're doing it.
I lived in that neighborhood for 5 years, and
Yes.
the street was constantly weeping.
And the funding for this project will come from a CDBG. Yes, sir.
Go back one slide real quick. Are you still on track to finish your projects for the next couple of years? And those color codes, does that indicate like just
Years.
slurry seal?
No, some will be zero seal, some will be grind overlay. Like, I'm sorry, I missed it. Anderson, we plan to grind and overlay with rubberized asphalt. University, we plan to grind and overlay with rubberized asphalt.
Is there going to be any attempt to flatten the roller coaster ride at the bridge on Anderson?
We plan to
Not the railroad bridge. I'm
yeah,
talking
we're
about
going to
the waterway
smooth it.
bridge.
Smooth it.
Because,
Yes.
Because people have commented that that's a little bit too much of a thrill for them.
Yes, but it's only so much we can do. What happened is abutment settle, and so it have a little.
If you're heading
Right here.
Drainage culvert.
Anderson and the
if you're
channel.
heading south on Anderson, just close your eyes and wait for a big zero G moment.
Yeah.
You fall down into a gutter and then you come back out of it again.
Yeah.
Right when you cross the which channel is that?
San Mateo channel.
The San Mateo channel.
It's called traffic calming device.
Yeah. I think it's thrilling, but
Okay?
people don't
But
like it.
Majority of the subdivision is service seal, sir.
Was there a water main break over there in Mission Creek last week or the week before? Did you know about it?
No. I can check it.
I was just curious, that would be that's a city responsibility.
Yes, well, yes, it's a city.
I'm just trying to take back, reference that other thing, trying to take back info to feed back, to look at what all the stuff that's going to be happening here.
Yes.
And my advice to close your eyes was assuming you were the passenger.
And another project we plan to do is Curtis from Van Leuven to Park. That this area used to be CDBG, it used to be a low income area. Now it's no longer in a CDBG area. We have improved this area so much that the household income is higher. So if they allow me to spend the CDBG money because I was budget this project for prior to the area come out of the CDBG, I would do that. It's water. So again, what we plan to do is do a lot of capital improvement that not utilize the general fund, and we'll be doing very well with that. So, any question?
Looks good.
Okay. Back to street. Another project that I will be working on that I have not mentioned is I will be working with Sandbag, the airport, IVDA, and the city of Redlands for the I-10 freeway and Mountain View interchange. They come up with a design, a putting out design that range from $25 million to $40 million. I'm not sure where the money coming from yet or how long it would take. But what I would like to do is come up with the interim solution is to add the right turn pocket for the westbound and the eastbound off-ramp. I will bring that back to the city council to approve to review the agreement with Sandbag and a premium layout.
How would we have anything to do with the westbound?
Yeah, that's San Bernardino, isn't it?
That
Yes.
part is Redlands.
Yes, it's going to be people turning right, going north, but we have somebody like Conrad who use that every morning because the traffic of backing up because they can't turn is we have people actually say in a queue try to turn even left to go southbound on Mountain View.
Yeah.
So by adding the right turn pocket, we'll clear the intersection a lot faster. And
But that's
we
for the eastbound.
westbound. Even the eastbound traffic, right now, the problem that we have with the eastbound traffic, eastbound off-ramp is because the truck that come out, that go turn left into northbound, it block up the whole intersection. So what we plan to do is add additional right turn, which is for the traffic that goes southbound on Mountain View to have a kind of free flow
Off the eastbound.
going south. Yes.
But I don't understand why we have any jurisdiction north of the freeway. Where's the boundary?
The boundary on the north side of the freeway.
Is it on the north? Is it at the north side of the exit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
The fence line, isn't it?
Yes.
Is Mountain View,
It's interesting, I thought the divider was
is
in the middle of the
Mountain
freeway.
View north of the freeway a boundary between Redlands and, because
It's-
I know what's west of Mountain View is San Bernardino.
Right.
think
It's
that's
funny. The east side is Redlands, the west side is San Bernardino.
But what you're saying is that it's all Loma-Linda because the boundary is the north side of the
It is, we have to, that's why I need to meet with Sandbag and City of Redlands and the City of San Bernardino and IVDA to help pay for this. We cannot pay for all of this.
Yeah.
So. And one of the ticket.
If they won't help pay for it, they can cede it to us, right?
And then
we can contact LAFCO and say they've abandoned the territory.
But Sandbag should have money for this kind of a.
But Sandbag's money is programmed 20 and 30 years
Yes,
in advance.
it's down the
But
list.
for an emergent issue,
You're
Everybody
absolutely
has an
right,
emergent issue.
but they don't see it as an emergent issue. Honestly, the big player that's been the most help for us is IVDA.
Right. IVD can help us a lot.
They are, I mean,
They're
and
gonna
I
help
think,
us.
again, that has to do with our participation
Yes.
and our commitment to IVDA in the
Yeah,
last couple of
and
years.
frankly, the increase in the traffic from the north side is IVDA territory. It's not really Redlands and San Bernardino.
And the money for this project will come from regional transportation, development impact fee for regional transportation. The same thing with what we pay for I-10 and Tippecanoe interchange. So, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, what items are left in number 6?
Now you can approve the whole thing. Can you
can we
approve
do
the whole thing or
it
just by line?
together, or do we have to do them individually?
Pardon me? No. The rest is pretty self-explanatory, so.
Let's just address it. So in regards
To the approving the budget, can we cut out that salary increase to talk about, or where are we at legally with that? What do we need to do?
Well, that was adopted by ordinance, and so you can't undo it at this point. The ordinance will go into effect unless it's repealed, but the repeal could not go into effect until another 2-year cycle. So your option under the government code is you can waive or forego any salary increase if you choose, or a portion of it.
For a prescribed amount of time.
Well, yes.
So by waiving and foregoing, because the government code says that salary, does it say salary increases or decreases or both?
Well, any change.
Any change must occur between.
It must occur by ordinance, and it must occur prior to a new council member or a new term of office for a council member.
Okay. Does that mean that it happens for the people who are seated and not the people who have a new term of office in 2 years? Or does it mean that everybody every 2 years has a chance for an adjustment?
Everybody every 2 years has an opportunity to vote as a body to adjust the salary.
Okay. But it's in the middle of some of their terms and between others'
That's
terms.
true.
And they're granting that as an exception to the, okay.
Correct.
And then if there's a voluntary waiver, it can be set for a year, and it doesn't have to wait 2 years to change the waiver.
Correct.
Okay.
Voluntary waiver, you mean for the council as a whole or individual members you're talking about?
I think the individual members have the right to forego salary.
Or we have the right as the council to modify, similar to what we did when we took a 20% cut on our benefits.
Well, I think the council can vote jointly to do that, yes, or individually.
And then does it tie it into a 2-year cycle, or is that an extra
because
action?
it would be a voluntary reduction. I don't believe the council can impose that on a member who objected. That's the point of this government code section, that changes of that nature can only be done prospectively after the seating of a new council.
So the 20% reduction in benefits that we did in 2008 was required unanimity?
I believe it did have that. I don't recall.
I'm sure it was unanimous, but I didn't realize it required it. I didn't realize that there was a non-forcing clause.
It was unanimous. I think everybody decided to do that. But
Yes.
just for point of record, when the council voted to increase the salary of the council members 2 weeks ago, the vote also included to maintain that 20% reduction. So there's still a reduction that's being taken by the council. In addition, that's in addition to all the other things we talked about.
Although I don't think we actually voted to retain it. We just,
Yeah.
nobody introduced the motion to
lift it.
To lift it, right.
Yeah, and the council, if, let's say, that we voted to waive the increase, then to be on par with the city employees, there would be a restoration of the 20% cut. Because right now, the council has retained, to this date, a larger percentage of we've retained the entire cut from the 2008 downturn. And the 20% or the other things for the employees have been restored. But anyway, that's just for explanation. Okay, I just wanted to parse out the particulars. So I guess we can...
What's the option then? Can you repeat what it is we can do?
Well, the options are, and there's a new wrinkle in it. Let's say that an overwhelming sense of shame overtook us, and we voted to, let's say the four of us voted unanimously to waive a year of the increase or 50% of the increase or whatever we want to do, then I hear that that does not necessarily apply to anyone who does not vote in the affirmative.
Correct. And that is not on the agenda this evening, so you could not do that this evening.
But we could, there's at least one more meeting before the new fiscal year starts, so it could be agendized in future meetings.
Could be.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to figure out what our options are. Not stipulating that there is no overwhelming sense of shame.
So there's nothing wrong there. Nothing could be done about it tonight then. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm hearing too.
I just want to make a comment on it. I'm really uncomfortable with, I start over again. At the time when we talked about it before, I was, as Mr. Duper said, I kind of was under the idea that it was kind of in agreement here, that this is kind of what the budget committee was thinking. I don't know where I got that from, but I had that idea. And I'm really uncomfortable with actually taking it if the budget committee feels so strongly against it. And I don't like hearing terms like 500%, 700%, 800%, and all that. Now, whether I think that's correct or not is maybe under review, but I would like to, in some way, hold it off, waive it, do whatever we need to do so that we won't be in opposition to our budget committee. But I would also like to direct the budget committee to come back with an actual study of actual compensation, total comp, from whatever it is, cars and cell phones and whatever it is, a total comp to compare, because I'd really like to know. And if we're really above, even with that, if that's true, then I want to cut it more, because I don't want to be paying a lot more than other cities pay. So I would like to know that. But I'd like to have a fair apples to apples comparison all the way. And if it turns out that we're above, I'll be the first one to submit something, a motion to cut it. So I would like to have that come back. And secondly, I'd like to have the budget committee come back with actual recommendations as to other things that we can cut. Because if the concern is so bad that we're running a deficit or having a budget that isn't balanced or whatever, then I think we need to know exactly what we need to do and get some recommendations exactly what to do. But in the meantime, I'd be in favor of holding off on any kind of increase for us,
Just to clarify, it would be waiving, not cutting.
whatever the terminology is, yes.
Okay, so what's up for approval by the council is item 6, and it's many parts. And by the Housing Authority.
Right. Can we cluster these, or do we need to take them one by one?
I think you can take them all together if we recite what is being included, which would be items 6C through K, the 5-year capital improvement program, Council Bill R 2016-19, approving the adjusted appropriations limit, the investment policy, the COPS grant expenditure plan, Schedule A to the Sheriff's Department contract, extension of the annual service contracts listed, the wildland fire protection contract, Council Bill R-216-20, the fiscal year budget for the city, and the resolution for the Housing Authority, R-216-02, adopting their budget.
I'll make a motion based on what the attorney just quoted.
I will second it if I don't have to repeat it all.
And I have a question, because built into that is obviously the very budget we've spent most of the evening discussing. So now we're talking about wanting to make modifications with the potential to balance the budget.
I don't think we can make a modification. I
Well,
think
that was the
this-
point
We
I was
can,
going to make.
we can make
Yeah,
a
the
modification.
discussion will be whether or not we decide to.
We can make a
waive-
modification to the budget. What we can't make a modification to is the salary, because that's by ordinance that was passed 2 weeks ago, and it goes into effect in 16 days. And then we could not fix that amount, that base amount for the pay, until 2018.
Okay, so.
The rest of the budget is up for grabs.
Okay. So,
We could strike 50% of the budget right now.
So you want me to bring this city council salary back at the next meeting?
What we would like is, I think the instruction to staff is to come back with a more robust salary survey at whatever time it takes you to achieve that. Because I'd rather you take the time to figure it out and get it right than to do a slipshod job in 3 weeks.
I have to say this. The problem with doing a survey is then the employee would say, well, then we should do the survey, a salary survey on the employee too, and I'm afraid that I have to give people a lot of raise that we cannot afford, and
so there are risks in benchmarking, is what you're saying.
yes.
There are risks in getting sand in your ears if your head is buried.
But you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, we're not, okay, we're not passing a resolution tonight that says we will match 100% of the median salary of councilmen in the state of California. We're not doing that. So we just want information, because we've been challenged with 750% and 351% of 1946 numbers that that we just wanted to have a little bit more facts. It's not going to be a formal salary survey, and it's not like the San Bernardino City Charter where they have to get 10 cities and their salary is actually benchmarked at that number and there's no flexibility. We're not in that kind of a situation.
It should all be a matter of public record anyway, shouldn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the curiosity is, what are the other benefits beyond salary that are involved? But I don't think it has to be June 14. If it takes longer than that, then is that acceptable to you? Because because I just think we need another swipe at it before we decide what to do. And I don't think that our city staff are sitting here on the edges of their chairs saying we're just about to get a 50% increase, because I don't think they're unrealistic.
Is this waiver type thing, is there anything about if once you pay it, you can't vote it? I'm just trying to dot every I and cross every T here. Is it something that you would have to vote before you start getting it? Or once you start getting it, then we have a waiver to not, like, let's say it was 2 months down the road?
Individual city council members can waive their entire salary at any time. And you're not required to draw a salary.
Do you waive a portion of it, or do you have to waive the whole thing?
You could waive all or a portion.
I waive all but $21 of it to the state of California and the federal treasury.
So ultimately, I think it almost comes down to a personal choice. But with some education, which I think is deserved, but so it's up to everybody here and what they want to do with the knowledge that survey is coming, and you can either decide to wait for it or do whatever, right?
Well, we have to wait for it. We can't, it's not agendized tonight to do anything about it, other than its inclusion in the budget. I guess we can refuse to appropriate the funds. I don't know whether that would be even a legal way to do it. But.
Question on the motion.
Okay, so did that answer your question? Because you had a question on the budget. You said you had a question on the budget, and that's what opened up this latest round.
That was the question.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
how this will all work out.
So there's a motion and a second,
Even now.
and I'm going to ignore Robert's rules, which requires a vote on the motion to call the question. I'm going to
Please.
waive that, go directly to the vote on the motion and the second, the primary motion. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I hear unanimity, 4 votes and 1 absence. New business is nothing. Are there any reports of councilmen?
Not necessarily a report, but I'm going to keep harping on this. Do we have a code enforcer going around looking at lawns full of weeds?
Yes, we do. And if there are, let us know and we will.
Is he under 90 years old and able to see? All right, I'm being facetious, but I've got a note at home. I forgot to bring it with addresses, so I'll get that to you, because we've got some disasters that are frankly embarrassing that need to be taken care of. So I'll get the addresses to you.
Get us the addresses and we can look.
I'll do the patrolling.
All right.
I have one thing to report.
I have one report of councilman. I have to declare a public mea culpa. Last week, there was a celebration of the $72 million I-10 Tippecanoe interchange completion, ribbon cutting, and
It was nice to see the mayor of Chino there.
it was unattended by the city council of Loma Linda. I mistakenly listed the timing of the 210, 215, now the 215 interchange, 215 interchange timing for Friday, and it was on Tuesday. I missed the thing completely. I'm much chagrined that I missed it. And you were unrepresented except by the able participation and speech making by Jarb, who is to be commended.
And the mayor of Chino. There was some city that wasn't anywhere close to us.
Yes, and there were sandbag authorities there. There were local potentates and functionaries from all over the Inland Empire except for Loma Linda, and it was an embarrassing moment.
That's okay, because I understand at the groundbreaking of the medical center on Sunday, they had the City of San Bernardino Police Department present the colors, and the San Bernardino Police Chief do some type of ceremonial thing.
He did
I think
that.
they must have forgot we were a Sheriff's Department community.
That was a little odd. That was odd, I agree.
Yeah, it was in honor of their December 2nd.
I think the Sheriff's Department was at December 2nd also, in a big way.
Yeah.
Well, usually I try to attend wherever Pam and Barbara say I'm supposed to, but I missed it this time too.
And they also snubbed our chamber color guard.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it was a very nice event, and other than that minor slight, it was very well attended, and there were a lot of also local potentates in attendance. I saw a lot of members of the Sandbag community there. So it's quite a large thing for our community, and we are proud of our institutions and their contribution to the community. Reports of officers.
Yes, this Thursday at 1 o'clock, there'll be a soft opening at the VA outpatient clinics. It's hand over the key from the builders to the VA. So the building is pretty much completed. Now it's going to hand over to the VA.
I have too many keys already.
So that they can start move in and equip the
I will
clinics.
illustrate. That's enough. I don't need more. Yeah, I was on the shovel brigade for the groundbreaking for the medical center. Okay, any other comments? Then the City Council agenda is adjourned. We will rejoin the Housing Authority agenda, which is in progress. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Any public comment on non-agendized items? Seeing none, the consent calendar is there. We have already done the old business. What about the consent calendar? Any motion? Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none is approved. The old business is already taken care of. Are there any member reports? Any reports of officers? Hearing none, we are adjourned. The next item and the last item is our redevelopment agency. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Any oral reports from the public? No comments. Okay, consent calendar. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Come back on June 14. We'll be having ceremonies. Seating of councilmen. That's Flag Day. Oh. We will have the Pledge Allegiance to the flag on Flag Day.